Hey everyone, Amish Shah here, and I'm here with my wife, Dr. Pooja Shah.
Hi, everyone.
And we're really excited about this movement that we've created and this momentum that we have around the Ancient Healthcare Project and everything we're doing with the Indiegogo campaign. As promised, we have several guests lined up, and we're really here to share some of the powerful knowledge behind Ayurveda and this ancient healthcare system. The last session, we kind of covered a little bit about the introduction to Ayurveda, what it's all about.
It's a 6,000-year-old healing science, so it's quite old, and it's got deep roots, which is why we really, really love it.
Yeah, and something this old that goes back thousands and thousands of years, that's now just starting to be proven by modern science. It's phenomenal to see that, and it wasn't by accident that this was written thousands of years ago either. And so we're really excited about today's guest because she's going to be going into some of the deeper concepts of the mind and gut kind of connection. Most people don't realize that there's a connection behind mind and gut, but we've talked about it on some of our blog posts and some of our videos. We actually say that the gut, I believe, and we'll get into this in just a second, has more neurons than the brain does, or something very, very interesting like that. Don't know the exact details. Hopefully our guest, Dr. Kulreet Chaudhary, can help us shine some light on that. Now, what I'm going to be doing here is I have a little kind of guide that I'm going to be following here, so you might see me reach across here from time to time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start the slides in just a second, and we'll get started on some of this amazing content.
Yeah, we're excited. Thanks for being here.
Okay, we're going to jump to the slides right now. Okay, so as promised, this is the ancient healthcare session about the mind-gut connection. Now, what is so important about the mind-gut connection? Well, just going back a little bit, the fundamentals of Ayurveda are simple. It's a 6,000-year-old science. It's about reconnecting with nature.
It's about the doshas, which we'll get into, and the protocols of Ayurveda.
The simple protocols of Ayurveda. They're very, very simple.
Yeah.
And anyone can put these things into life, which we're going to discover in just a second. So why is Ayurveda so important, and why are we making such a big deal about Ayurveda? Well, Ayurveda is the most accurate ancient medical system providing solutions to many of our modern day health concerns. Our modern day health concerns are we're just starting to realize what it's doing to us. We're now sicker than ever. Things are broken, like the medical system, the food system. There's GMOs and pesticides, and the problem just doesn't stop there. There's fast food and there's stress.
There's a lot of stress.
There's lots of stress. Yeah. And so, on the right-hand side of this slide, we have something that says, Western science is just starting to catch up to what we're doing. And so these are just some of the studies that we are starting to uncover.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different studies talking about, they're actually getting into how certain herbs, Ayurvedic herbs, have properties that hinder growth of cancer cells. There's stuff that they're talking about reducing inflammation in something they never thought they could reduce, like type 1 diabetes. There's hundreds and hundreds of more of these. So it's pretty profound.
Yes. And so this is what brings us to our expert today that we have on our call. Her name is Dr. Kulreet Chaudhary. She is the Director of Neurology at Wellspring Health and the author of the book, The Prime, which is now for sale. And we're going to be getting into the concepts behind the Prime in just a bit. She is an amazing pioneer in the field of integrative medicine. She's sought after by individuals and large medical corporations for her holistic and patient-focused approach to healing. We even interviewed her for our film as well, the documentary film, which is a part of the Indiegogo campaign. And when we filmed her, it was really just amazing to see the passion that she has for Ayurveda, and what she did from a Western perspective as a doctor, as a studied MD in America, and why she's kind of made the shift to Ayurveda, and what caused that, and why. What is the big thing behind the Prime, and why she's doing all this. So again, why is this important? Well, let's go back to that. the food we eat today is quite literally poisoning us. 80% of our food is GMO, tens of thousands of chemicals in the food we eat. Recent studies, this is really interesting, from GMO food toxins that are found in 93% of unborn babies.
Oh, wow.
Almost 70% of adults in the USA are overweight. 74% of Americans have digestive problems like gas, bloating, or abdominal pain. And colorectal cancer is one of the most common forms of cancer in the United States. And in fact, let me just fix this slide here. In fact, it's the third leading cause of cancer in cancer-related deaths. So, this is just touching the subject just very, very briefly. And by now, we should know that all of these problems are leaving us more overweight, poisoned, exhausted, stressed, and more sick than we've ever been in the history of humanity, ever. And so this is important. This is important for us to figure out how we can reverse this, and about our mission to help heal 20 million people by 2030, or more importantly, help us get the documentary to 20 million people by the end of the year, just for awareness and education. So without further ado, I will allow Dr. Kulreet Chaudhary here to talk about the prime and show us a little bit about that mind-gut connection. How is stress related to what we digest, and how is what we digest related to what we think? And there's a very strong connection. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna...
And definitely have a pen and paper handy here. I'll be taking a lot of notes.
Yeah. Okay, so I just gave Kulreet access.
Well, thank you so much for having me here to talk about this topic, which is extremely timely because of a lot of the information that we are now starting to learn, even in medical literature, about this connection between our guts and our body, especially our brain. So today I'm going to talk about how to build a smarter gut for spontaneous weight loss. And what I want to do is to first just share a little bit about my own story and how I came to Ayurvedic medicine, and how that connection with Ayurvedic medicine helped me to better understand this connection between mind and gut. So I actually developed headaches. I developed severe migraine headaches, and this happened near the end of my training as a neurologist. And of course, as a neurologist who developed headaches, I thought, no big deal. I treat thousands of patients for this. I know exactly what to do. And so I started all of my own patients on, I started myself, on all of the medications that I had started my own patients on. And I was just absolutely horrified by the side effects that I was experiencing. And I got into this place where I felt like I had to choose between being kind of doped out and drugged out from the medication versus being in pain. And so after experimenting on myself with all these medications, I did kind of the only last intelligent choice that I had, which was going to my mom. And I essentially went to my mom and told her what was happening and asked for her advice. And my mom actually helped to reconnect me with my Ayurvedic roots. And in our household, we always had been practicing Ayurvedic medicine in one form or another, but this was really the first time that I ever had something so serious that I needed to reach out for specific treatments. And of course, during my medical training, I slowly got further and further away from the knowledge of Ayurvedic medicine. And so it wasn't until I developed migraine headaches and failed all of the other treatments that I came back to this knowledge. And so I went to a Ayurvedic practitioner, and as soon as I went in and explained what was going on, he asked me a series of questions about my digestion. And quite honestly, I was almost put off by this because I felt like he wasn't listening to the problem. I had headaches. I didn't have digestive problems. But he insisted on, pursuing more information about my digestion. And I was actually surprised by some of the questions that he asked, because They were questions that I never thought were related to my digestion, including, how fatigued I was, and just even the coating on my tongue. And so I completed the Ayurvedic evaluation. He started me on several dietary recommendations, as well as several herbal preparations, many of which I talk about in the Prime. And I implemented his advice because, quite honestly, I just didn't have any other choices at that point. And lo and behold, within a few months, I was headache free. But it didn't stop just there. I wasn't just headache free. I had way more clarity than I remembered having since before my medical training began. And I had more energy. It was having the same energy I had in my early 20s. And little by little, I had this weight loss that was occurring spontaneously. And I'll be honest, I did not even notice the weight coming on. I was so focused on my medical training and then starting my neurology practice that I didn't really notice how tight my clothes were getting. But as I started this program for my migraine headaches, which addressed my gut health, the weight and the puffiness spontaneously resolved. And so I was so excited by my own personal results, especially the fact that I was headache free within a few months without any medications, that I immediately took this back to my neurology practice. And within a few months of doing that, I had completely transformed the way that I approached neurology. I was so excited about the knowledge I had that I was really ready to conquer all disease. My patients were so excited about this. I was so excited about this. But despite all of the excitement and despite the abundance of this knowledge, my patients were still struggling to make changes, especially when it came to their food choices. And I could not figure this out because my patients were smart, they were hardworking, and they were what I considered to be multitasking wizards. And they had all of the tools that they needed to succeed in other areas of their lives. And so why couldn't they change their eating habits? This was really, really perplexing to me. And I started to look at, what could be the obstacle to change? And so the first place I looked at was myself. I figured, maybe I just wasn't providing them with what they needed as a physician to help them make the changes. So did I need to be funnier? Did I need to be smarter? Could I be kinder? Could I be a better listener? Or maybe I needed to just take that tough love approach and start giving them consequences, meet these goals or else. And I implemented all of this. I became funnier with my patients. I took a smarter approach to what was going on. I tried to be kinder and a better listener, and I started to give real consequences. And despite all of this, all of the changes that I made to myself, it helped some, but still most of my patients still struggled with food choices. So the next question I had was, did they really want to change? And the answer I got was a resounding yes. People were desperate to change, and they knew that what I was telling them was going to be good for them. And yet, even if they were able to make a few changes, they weren't able to get off of some of these habits that linked them to junk food and the midnight munchies and so forth. And so, here I was in this predicament where I really, really wanted to help them. And I was armed with valuable knowledge that could transform their lives. But I had no way to plant the seeds of change. And these were patients who desperately wanted to change their eating habits to reverse what was happening in their brains. And so I did the only thing that I knew to do, which was I studied the problem. And this was a real critical step for me to step away from kind of the emotions I was feeling and the emotions that my patients were feeling around this, and just look at it from a purely scientific perspective. And I had been involved with over 20 clinical studies in neurology. And so I was accustomed to being able to step back and evaluating a problem without being emotionally involved and just looking at the science of it. And as I did this is when I had my eureka moment. This was when I realized, it wasn't a personality flaw in myself. It wasn't a personality flaw in my patients. there was something else going on that was making changing your diet in particular so difficult. So the first step for me was to identify these obstacles to change. And what I was so surprised by is that these were actual biochemical obstacles to changing your diet. And it involved an incredibly complex communication between the brain and gut. And the beauty was that Ayurvedic medicine actually had the tools to overcome these obstacles. And surprisingly, this did not involve willpower at all. Now, I have to make this very, very clear. For a neurologist to really be looking at the connection between the brain and gut, this was really close to heresy in the neurological world. We really tend to look at the brain as sitting separately from the rest of the body, and certainly wasn't connected to what was happening way down there in your belly. But understanding this complex communication, which is so beautifully outlined in Ayurvedic medicine, was the key to helping me to understand what was happening inside of my patients that was preventing them from being able to so easily change their diet to the foods that would heal their body and heal the brain. So the first obstacle that I identified was the toxic overload that was occurring in my patients. There are more toxic chemicals in our food and environment now than ever before. And this isn't inconsequential when it comes to our brain health and our gut health. These toxins, this results in a new unprecedented need for detoxification in our modern world. Now, detoxification has always been a part of Ayurvedic medicine, but it's typically treated as something that you do seasonally or something that you do later on after making your changes in your diet. But now we were dealing with this massive toxic overload from the very, very beginning. As a matter of fact, even on your first day of life, you already have toxic chemicals in your body. A study showed that newborn cord blood showed on average 200 industrial chemicals and pollutants. So let's just look at this a little further. So newborn cord blood is the blood that connects baby to mom. And this is while the baby is in utero, supposedly in a protected environment. And so already on the first day of life, when they took the sample of that blood connecting mom to baby, there were 200 industrial chemicals and pollutants, meaning these were chemicals that we had put into the environment. These were chemicals as a result of living basically our modern life with all of the plastic and other commercially produced byproducts that are put into the environment. And from the very beginning, we're having to deal with this. So this isn't the same type of detoxification needs that we heard about in Ayurvedic medicine from thousands of years ago, where you need the occasional seasonal cleanse. This is necessary from the very beginning. I mean, we're literally filled with toxins from day one of life. And so what I realized is that I had to move the detoxification process from being something that we would do at the end or at following the dietary changes to something that was necessary up front. And there's a process in the body called biotransformation. And in this, toxic byproducts are converted into water and fat soluble form so that they can be safely eliminated or stored. So this would typically happen like if you're taking a medication, for example, goes into your GI tract, and from your GI tract, it's moved through to the liver. And in the liver, it is where the biotransformation occurs, where these toxic byproducts are now converted into water and fat soluble forms. And then they can be eliminated either through urine or sweat, or in fat soluble forms, they can be brought back into the GI tract and basically removed through the colon. But what was happening because of this overwhelming toxic burden, we were experiencing bioaccumulation. And bioaccumulation is when toxic load exceeds body's ability to convert it into a safer byproduct, and it accumulates in the body, such as heavy metals, pesticides, and PCBs. And so what happens also is as the environment is being polluted and the food source for animals that we may eat becomes polluted, these toxins become bioaccumulated first in the animals, so they become highly concentrated there, and then in us as we eat it, and then for women in particular, it gets passed on to newborns. And the end result is essentially a biochemical traffic jam in the body. And so if we didn't include a detoxification process in the very beginning, we basically were having to deal with the byproducts of all of these toxins running around in the body. And what did they do? These unprocessed toxins seep into your gut, leading to leaky gut, which I'll talk about a little bit more. They seep into your blood, leading to autoimmunity. The way that they do this is the toxins through a leaky gut get into the blood, and your immune system starts to identify them as invaders, and it properly identifies them as invaders. But sometimes what happens is this will cross-react with some of our organs, or as the toxins get accumulated in the organs, the immune system starts to attack the organ itself. And that's one of the ways that autoimmunity results. They can also seep into our brain, leading to leaky brain, and I'll talk a little bit more about what this means. And essentially, this leads to damage in the enteric nervous system. And the enteric nervous system is the actual brain in our gut. And I'll explain more in just shortly why this enteric nervous system is so important in order to be able to make healthy choices. So that was the first obstacle, was just, how do I overcome this toxic overload that was present in my patients literally from the time of birth? The second issue was food addictions. Foods are actually being chemically designed for addiction. Now, this sounds like a brilliant business plan. You make foods addictive so that people just keep coming back as consumers and eating more and more of these unhealthy processed foods. The problem is that it's actually slowly killing off your body as you're essentially propagating their business model. And so I'm all for, successful business, but not at the expense of our health. And so when I was asking a patient to change what she's eating, it was literally like asking an addict to give up cocaine. And I'm not using this as a kind of colorful metaphor. Our modern modified junk foods actually cause dopamine spikes in the brain to create a heightened pleasure response. And these dopamine spikes are related to our feel-good emotions. They send sudden sensations of pleasure. Now, normally, if you have some, nice ripe fruit, or you go for a walk on the beach, you'll get these gentle increases in dopamine that make you feel good. But these sudden spikes in your brain create such a high pleasure response that it actually becomes stressful and leads to addiction. And we can see this when we look at brain scans, and these are PET scans of different brains. And the one on the furthest left is a PET scan of a normal brain, so a non-addicted brain. The one in the middle is the PET scan of someone who is addicted to cocaine. And the one on the right is a brain scan of an obese person who is exposed to sugar. So you can see that cocaine and sugar are essentially doing the exact same thing in the brain in terms of resulting biochemistry or neurochemistry of addiction. So food really has become a drug, the way that it is being prepared in the modern world. And so the third obstacle that I found was what I categorize as a dumb gut. And this is kind of a compilation of a few different things, but it's essentially loss of intelligence in the gut. And so it comes from gut permeability, or otherwise known as a leaky gut, imbalance in gut flora, and damage again to the enteric nervous system, or the actual brain in the gut. So this results in brain damage in your gut. Now, many people may have heard of a leaky gut, but they may not fully understand what it is. I want to just explain this concept briefly. So in the gut, you have kind of this selective matrix, and it allows certain particles out of the gut into the bloodstream that are ready to be treated as nutrients by the body. But it keeps in larger molecules that haven't been fully digested or are toxic byproducts that need to be eliminated. And what happens in a leaky gut is that matrix becomes injured. And with that injury, molecules that should have actually stayed inside the gut seep into the blood. And part of what happens in this process of inflammation that leads to gut permeability is this shift in gut flora. And your gut flora, the bacteria in your gut, are extremely important to your overall health. And as the damage to the gut gets deeper, you start to damage the actual nerves that are located in your gut, in the submucosal layer. And this is known as the enteric nervous system. So the brain and the gut, really the intelligence of the brain and the gut results from an interaction between the enteric nervous system and the gut flora. And the job is to keep the gut and the nervous system functioning properly. And like I said before, this has just been kind of fascinating new research showing how important the enteric nervous system and a healthy gut flora is to the actual brain inside of your skull. The enteric nervous system is supported by healthy, or what we call symbiotic microbiome. This microbiome consists of all of the bacteria that live in your GI tract. And in fact, 90% of all DNA in your body actually comes from bacteria in your gut. So these are pretty important guys. You literally have more bacterial DNA swimming around inside you than you do human DNA. So they exert a tremendous effect on your body as a whole. And the enteric nervous system and gut flora impact behavior, such as food choices. And this has also just been very, very newly studied area. And I love this one study of mice where they had 2 sets of mice that were essentially genetically engineered. One was genetically engineered to be confident, and another was genetically engineered to be kind of anxious. And what they did is they did a fecal transplant. I know it sounds kind of gross, but they take basically the feces from one mice and transplant it to another. And what this effectively does is it changes the gut flora in the recipient. And so they took feces from the kind of outgoing, courageous mice and implanted it into the anxious mice. And the anxious mice actually became more courageous. So it actually even changed the personality or behavior of mice. So this gut flora that is residing in our GI tract, predominantly in the colon, has a huge amount of communication to the brain. And what we're finding is that when you have an intact enteric nervous system plus the symbiotic or the good gut flora, you spontaneously have healthy eating habits. It's not anything that's a chore. It just becomes part of the natural rule. And the reason for that is your healthy gut flora, they have been with you. They have evolved with you for generations. These guys are in it for the long haul. They want you to be healthy because it ensures their survival as well. And so they will send signals to the brain that reward positive behavior when you're eating healthy foods. Now, what happens though is with an inflammatory diet, so diets that are in high fat, high sugar, and high salt. And when I'm talking about high fats here, I'm not talking about the natural healthy fats that we see in things like ghee and avocado. I'm talking about hydrogenated oils, highly processed fat. And you add that to preservatives and additives, and what happens is it starts to damage the gut, eventually leading to gut permeability or leaky gut, damage the enteric nervous system, the brain damage again that's occurring in your gut, and it causes a shift from these happy, healthy bacteria that are supporting positive choices to parasitic gut flora. And that basically results in a whole new programming that is occurring in the GI tract, because as you shift to these parasitic bacteria, now they have completely different tastes and they are surviving off of a completely different diet. These parasitic bacteria actually survive off of the inflammatory foods, such as the high sugar, high fat, and high salt diets. And they actually reward your brain with spikes in those feel-good neurotransmitters like dopamine every time you eat what they need to live. And they're not in it for the long run. They simply want to survive for as long as they possibly can and get as much as they can out of you. And so essentially what happens is you now have 2 brains in your body. with a food addiction. You have the brain in your head as well as the brain in your gut. And unlike other addictions such as cocaine, where it's only affecting the brain in your head, food addictions have kind of this double whammy effect where you have to deal with your neurochemistry in the brain as well as the changes in your microbiome, the gut flora. So it results in an excessively powerful addiction. And then add on top of that all of the marketing we have, and it becomes very, very, very challenging to change your food behaviors. And so a smart gut essentially results from the enteric nervous system and the symbiotic bacteria being in charge because they want you to live a long, healthy life. But a dumb gut results from parasitic bacteria being in charge. And they're, again, only in it for the short run. And then the fourth obstacle I found was what I call leaky brain. And so essentially what happens is that the inflammatory conditions in the gut can lead to a breakdown of the blood-brain barrier, resulting in leaky brain. So the way to look at the blood-brain barrier is it's kind of like a bouncer that keeps certain things out of the brain and selectively allows other compounds into the brain. And this bouncer, the goal of this bouncer is to keep the brain protected from things that would harm the brain, like toxic byproducts or undigested products from digestion. So you remember these guys, the parasitic bacteria that are now populating your gut because of the inflammatory diet that most Americans are on? Well, when they die off, they actually release toxic particles from their cell walls into the bloodstream, like LPS, lipopolysaccharides. This is a very common toxin known to be in the cell walls of parasitic bacteria. And LPS can damage the blood-brain barrier and injure the brain, resulting in leaky brain. So LPS, when it gets into the bloodstream, after the parasitic bacteria die off, and now there's the presence of a leaky gut, so the LPS is in the bloodstream, it goes up to the brain, and it starts to damage the bouncer and essentially makes the bouncer ineffective in being able to keep out all of the bad guys. In fact, in pharmaceutical companies, when they are doing studies with mice and they want to replicate the brain of a Parkinson's patient, what they do is they will actually infuse LPS into the mouse in order to break down the blood-brain barrier and reproduce a Parkinson's-like state in mice so that they can study their medications. And although we don't have anybody infusing it into our veins, we're essentially allowing slow leakage of LPS from literally an infection in our gut from these parasitic bacteria. And once LPS and other toxins from the gut are in the bloodstream, you essentially have this low-grade chronic endotoxemia, which are just toxins floating around to your brain and your body. And endotoxins are very difficult to remove because they're not the actual bacteria. So you can't take antibiotics for endotoxemia because they're just the byproducts of the cell walls from the bacteria. And so this leads to even more burden on organs like the liver to detoxify the body. So they're already dealing with toxins from the environment, we're already dealing with toxins from food, and now we're dealing with toxins coming literally from within your GI tract. And so what happens? This results in leaky brain. And what are some of the symptoms of a leaky brain? You have things like brain fog, memory problems, difficulty concentrating, difficulty making decisions. And unfortunately, because so many people have leaky brain, so many of us are starting to think this is normal, myself included. As a matter of fact, when I went for my migraine headaches, these were all symptoms that I had: brain fog, memory problems, difficulty concentrating, difficulty making decisions. And the end result, when it becomes more extreme, is actual neurological disease. And that was also my case. I had developed migraine headaches, and fortunately it stopped there and didn't progress to anything else because I intervened with these Ayurvedic recommendations. And so once I stepped back and really studied the problem, I saw the whole picture. I realized that my patients were suffering from this toxic overload from foods and the environment since birth. Additionally, they were dealing with food addictions. They were dealing with all of the consequences of a dumb gut. And on top of that, they had leaky brain. And suddenly, the problem of changing your diet is a little bit bigger than what I initially thought. And it was definitely much more than willpower. And as I started to explain this to my patients, they started to get really empowered that, this wasn't just them being lazy or just because they didn't have the motivation to make the change, that this was a biochemical issue. And if it was a biochemical issue, we had to come up with a biochemical solution first before asking people to change what they were eating. And fortunately, Ayurvedic medicine already had it figured out over 5,000 years ago. And this was really kind of the beauty of this aha moment is I looked at the problem, but at the same time, I had been trained in the solution. And so I essentially started to look at all of the different herbs that I had been trained in, and some in particular like triphala and the use of traditional Indian spices like turmeric, cumin, fennel, ginger, herbs like ashwagandha and brahmi, using remedies like bone broth and other herbs like guggul. And for me, it was nothing short of having, a group of superheroes to turn to be able to remedy this biological conundrum of being able to change your habits. And so I took these herbs, but I used them I viewed them in a very different way. I looked at triphala as a remedy for leaky gut and as a way of repairing the enteric nervous system or that brain in your gut. And I looked at ashwagandha and brahmi as ways of stopping food addictions. And brahmi is actually used to treat other types of addictions. But ashwagandha and brahmi are never looked at as ways of, losing weight. But if you understand the science behind it and the science of neuroadaptation, it made perfect sense to bring them in. And then using bone broth for nutrition and also as a way of helping to repair the gut. And guggul, which helps to make the liver far more effective in removing toxins. And suddenly what seemed like an overwhelming biological issue started to have this very, very simple solution. And the outcome was that people began to change what they ate spontaneously because we were actually undoing the biochemistry of why they were eating the way they were. My job became a lot easier because all I did is I had to put them through this program for reversing the biochemical issue, and then making dietary recommendations became automatic. They were ready to make the choices. And so many of my patients realized many of the recommendations I was making naturally without me even telling them, because they were noticing what was causing a toxic reaction in their body and what wasn't. And the beauty for me was that their neurological disorders were beginning to resolve, which was, of course, my ultimate goal. But the unexpected outcome, just as in my case, people lost weight, and they lost a lot of weight without even trying. And now for a long time, I really didn't even pay attention to this. And it took me years to acknowledge that this was even an important outcome. It's not that I wasn't excited that people were fitting into their clothes again. It's just I was so ecstatic that we were reversing neurological disease that weight loss to me seemed like kind of a minor gain. But the reality is that being able to go back in time and regain the person you were before you were ever sick was a really important mark for people, that they were moving in the right direction. And so I realized that people were actually even more willing to do the program to slim their waistline than to save their brain. And I don't really have any judgment for why people change. I am ready to embrace kind of whatever matters to my patients. And so I figured if you can't beat them, join them. And so I really started touting then the weight loss benefits of this program in addition to the brain health. And that's essentially what brought me to write my book, The Prime. Prepare and repair your body for spontaneous weight loss. It's really my brain health program that happens to reverse the damage that's happening in the brain in your gut and breaks the addiction cycle for food in your brain and results in spontaneous weight loss as you rid yourself of all of this toxic inflammatory byproducts from the way that we are eating. And so in this book, I detail the modern biochemical dilemma in changing our food choices, as I've outlined very briefly here. I explain the Ayurvedic perspective, which brings so much light to how this has happened in our modern world. And then I give a 4-phase Ayurvedic detox program using some of the herbs that I talked about, using really simple teas and foods, essentially to build a smart gut and drop the pounds spontaneously. And what I aim to do is turn your kitchen into a pharmacy so that you can arm yourself for building your own smart gut. And we've also created an online program to accompany the book. And this was because I wish I could be there for every single person who's going through the program. And in order to give greater support and offer more resources and still offer that one-on-one expert advice, I created this program because I know that as people go through the program in the book, it really results in life transformation. I wanted to make sure that people had all of the support that they needed and all of the knowledge that they needed to take this on and finally beat this battle that is happening on a cellular level once and for all. So it's been such a pleasure to be here with you guys, to share what I'm doing with the book and to share kind of what I've learned after a decade of working with my patients and share kind of a different perspective on how Ayurvedic medicine can essentially transform the body. And I'll be happy to go over any questions that you guys might have.
Great, thank you so much. I just switched back to camera if you want to do that as well. There you go.
There you go.
And you're back. Thank you. That was like amazing. That was it's like I feel like I had some of the pieces, but I didn't really get it till like now, you know. So that was really amazing. So you know, you gave a great like an Ayurvedic overview of how someone can fix their weight or their digestive issues. What does someone like do right now to start? What is one thing they can take from here to just be like, I'm gonna go home and I can go do this?
There's 2 things that I love starting people on. They're actually part of the first phase in the program. And the first is just Triphala. It's, you know, it's so widely available now. The one that we used in our clinic came from MAPI, from Maharishi Ayurveda, and it's called Digestion. And it's just a terrific formulation, but there's so many varieties that are available. And just to start, you know, 500 to 1,000 milligrams every evening, such an easy way to bring this transformation in the gut. And it's just made out of 3 berries. And the other thing that I would recommend, and this is also part of the first phase of the book, it's called the Prime Tea. And it's a classically used Ayurvedic tea with just a combination of cumin seeds, coriander seeds, and fennel seeds. And it's so easy to make. You just do half a teaspoon of each of the seeds. So half a teaspoon of cumin, half a teaspoon of coriander, half a teaspoon of fennel. Boil it in about 4 to 5 cups of water. You can boil it anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. And then just simply remove the seeds, put it in a thermos, and just sip the tea all throughout the day.
Okay, let me looking over here.
Yeah.
And so I've heard that, you know, through this also people suffer from stamina and depression and some of these other issues. Does this also help with that and just kind of help us get over that, like sleep issues and digestive issues?
Yeah, very much. That was actually what was originally intended for, was to help people with their energy, help people with their sleep and their mood. And, you know, we're even starting to do studies now looking at the impact that the microbiome, the gut flora, has on mood. And there's a tremendous link even there. And so, you know, it's the basic premise of Ayurvedic medicine that in order to fix anything, you have to first fix what's happening in the GI tract. So there's really not any condition that can't be benefited from improving gut function.
That's so true, and it's pretty amazing how we saw all that connection today. And speaking of gut health, I mean, how does someone who's never, you know, done anything know if their gut is compromised or not? I mean, is there a way they can tell?
We have in the book a gut IQ test, And it helps you to figure out kind of how intelligent your gut is. But, really in reality, if you're having any kind of chronic symptom, especially symptoms of fatigue, low energy or brain fog, and from my perspective, any type of neurological disease, you have a gut health issue. So from an Ayurvedic perspective, any chronic unwanted symptom is the result of an impaired gut.
Okay.
Thank you.
I know through my own experience of going and fixing myself, of all the stuff that sort of happened when I was younger, and all these chronic issues that were showing up, it was majority of like my friends that I had surrounded myself with, and now I actually surround myself with different people. But let's just say you are surrounded by good people, and like, how do you deal with people who have different preferences?
Well, what I find, and this was kind of the most interesting consequence of this program, is as my patients would go through the program, and as you detoxified, excuse me, as you detoxified on a cellular level, that transformation really extended to your relationship. So it's just like what you said, I now hang out with different people. And so as you become healthier, any aspect of your life that feels toxic or out of balance really also starts to become just as uncomfortable. And so the natural progression is typically, you'll start to change the people that you're around, or even within families. Families start to change the way that they're eating. Oftentimes it'll be one person in the family that's making the changes, and little by little, other people in the family start to embrace kind of this healthier approach. But, toxicity in our relationships, in my view, is just an extension of internal toxicity.
I agree with that.
I totally agree. Yeah.
I mean, we know that when we started like kind of just eating, as much organic as possible, that all started several years ago. And our parents were just like, what do you mean? What the hell? That's all like BS. And, all that. Even my sister, like, she's like, she kind of got it, but then it took her a little while to really soak it in. But now it's like they actually follow it. Like they try to get as much organic as possible. Yes. And so,
healthy living is contagious. And when I have patients who come in and they ask, well, how can I get my friends to do this? How can I get my family members to do it? And I say, it's so easy. Just be the example. I mean, when you're living in a healthy, energetic, and happy life, people are naturally drawn to that. And the people that don't resonate with that will ultimately just kind of begin to leave your experience. It doesn't require a lot of effort. It's just kind of like the same with the weight loss. It really doesn't require a lot of effort. When you're resonating a certain attitude, when you're resonating a certain way of life, everything that matches that, vibrationally just kind of comes to you. And so it's a lot easier than most people think.
Yeah. It's almost like we say for, being the change, right? Like be the change. Yeah. You wish to see if Ayurveda is something really as important to us.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's how we live our life. So.
All change happens in the gut. I mean, I've had experiences with patients where they had self-diagnosed them as, just being an angry person, or just being a difficult person, or a horrible person. And I said, well, maybe, but this might just be a gut issue. And as we start to improve, their digestion, they just kind of unveil this amazing personality that was just hidden under all this toxic inflammation.
How nice is that? Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see in myself, like, radical transformation in personality and who I was versus who I am now.
I can vouch for that. Yeah.
So it's been pretty interesting.
Yeah.
You wanna? I think you had a question.
Yeah, I did have a question. I mean, it's something I can really relate to. I mean, after your medical training, and I've had same training. You had some skepticism about Ayurveda, right? But you were determined to heal yourself, like for your headaches and for everything. And so what was your experience as a patient being on, I guess, the other side of the stethoscope, as you say?
I think the biggest thing was humbling.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful I became a patient because I would say I was kind of the typical, I came out of residency feeling like the neurology superstar, and I had, started this amazing high profile practice in La Jolla in one of the best hospitals. And so it was very hard not to kind of have this chip on my shoulder. Like I knew everything, and I was, where I wanted to be, where people worked so hard to be. And I was starting out that way. And then I got sick, and, thank God I got sick, because it just was this crushing blow of humility. And I went from, I know it all and I can figure it all out, to really having to go back and go, hey, why can't I fix myself? And if I can't fix myself, I'm probably not fixing my patients either. And so, I mean, humility is like the best way that I can describe it. And like I said, thank God for that humility, because if I didn't have that, because I was so involved in clinical research and I was so sure of myself and so sure of my knowledge at that point, that if I wasn't struggling with my own health issues, I would have just gone on living like that, I know everything there is to know about neurology, and I've gotten this all figured out, and I know which drugs to prescribe. And instead it opened up this amazing world. And so I now, almost to a pathological point, invite kind of those ego crushing experiences, because they usually allow you to expand your horizons of what's possible.
Always, very powerful.
A beautiful process, and thanks for sharing it.
And that's a big piece about this campaign that we're launching for the documentary. And we have some of the herbs and some of the spices and some of the stuff that you were talking about. So it's really amazing to see all this knowledge become like so much more available. I think that's and educating it in a way that is palatable because Ayurveda is a different kind of science. It's a different approach to healing the body, and it's ancient, like thousands and thousands of years old. So I'd just like to actually just get your take on what we're doing with the campaign and the Indiegogo campaign, and why this documentary and everything that's the lifestyle changes that are incorporated with it, why they're so important and why it's important that we get this out there.
Of course, I'd be happy to. I think, one of the main things, and this was true for me too, is when people first hear about Ayurvedic medicine, they might look at it as like, oh, this is from the past and it's not relevant to me. And, I felt that way, even though I was brought up with it. I really felt like I had embraced this brave new world of modern medicine. And Ayurvedic medicine is so unbelievably relevant. And, I was able to do it working 15 hours a day. And, it's not like my schedule has become any less busy. And yet I'm still able to incorporate these. And if anything, it's allowed me to become way more productive and way more creative. And when I look at kind of the trajectory that I was on, if I would have followed that trajectory that I started, 10 years ago, I don't even know if I would have the ability to practice medicine. And so when we look at the things that we hold as true, like the things we want to accomplish in our careers, having the types of relationships in our life that, they're not toxic, that they're nurturing, that Ayurvedic medicine actually has these very simple answers to this so that we can enjoy being human again. I mean, that's really kind of the basis of it. Is I feel like people aren't enjoy being human anymore. It just feels overwhelming. And you don't realize how much of that is just biochemistry. And as you shift your biochemistry, your whole experience as a human being opens up again.
And I love what you say about how it's so simple. I mean, it is like we're incorporating it into our children's lives, into my pregnancy. It's something that is not hard to really, it evolves with you because it's so natural and it's so in tune. So thanks for sharing how simple it can be.
And for everyone that is on this call, one of the perks that we've included in our campaign is a copy of Dr. Kulreet Chaudhary's book, The Prime. I'm sure you will find it very, very useful. So go ahead and check that out immediately. You can check it out at ancienthealthcareproject.com, which will take you to the page, and there's some more information there as well.
Hi,
Amish Shah here from Ancient Healthcare. I first got the idea for the Ancient Healthcare project after my doctor gave me the bad news. You see, back in my 20s, I was this hotshot online entrepreneur. I partied hard, I drank hard, I stayed up all night, I ate unhealthy food, and for a while, I felt invincible. Everything came crashing down on me when I found out I had a fatty liver, sky-high cholesterol, and a broken digestive system. In fact, my doctor told me I'd be lucky to make it past 35. And so here I am, 36 years old, and luckily, because of an ancient healthcare system, I am completely healed. We'll get to what the system is in just a second. You see, I was just one small part of a far bigger problem. Because when you look at the statistics, we live in hazardous times. In fact, it's safe to say that with each generation, we're moving further and further away from our natural state of well-being. And these problems are coming at us from so many angles. Obesity rates are going up, chronic illness rates are going up, stress levels are through the roof. Tens of thousands of types of artificial chemicals are being pumped into our foods. Over 80% of the food available in the United States is genetically modified. And even our own medical system is broken. I mean, did you know that over 400,000 Americans die every year from preventable medical errors? Now, more than ever, we need a healing revolution. That's why my team and I launched this Ancient Healthcare Project. The Ancient Healthcare Project is a multi-part campaign throughout 2016 that aims to revive the 6,000-year-old healing science known as Ayurveda. Ayurveda is a holistic healthcare system that means life knowledge in Sanskrit, and its main principle is simple. It's about being in harmony with both Mother Nature and your unique body composition. But instead of all the chemicals, the invasive surgeries, and the one-size-fits-all approach you'll find in many aspects of modern medicine, Ayurveda shows you how to eat right. It shows you how to make the right lifestyle choices, how to remove toxins from your body. It also shows you how to enrich your diet with nutrient-dense herbs and supplements, and even how to reconnect with the essence of who you really are, all through a unique approach that honors your personal characteristics. And all of this so you can enjoy greater health, greater energy, and greater freedom in every area of your life. What's even more incredible about Ayurveda is that all of the remedies and techniques have been documented for thousands of years and tested on millions, if not billions of people, and only recently have been recognized and studied by modern science. You see, I use this very system and approach to heal myself. And now it's time to bring it to the world through detoxification protocols, herbal supplements, education, food, and lifestyle changes. I was able to completely cure myself. But there's one problem with Ayurveda. Most people either don't know about it or they find it too complex to learn about. And so through this Ancient Healthcare Project, we aim to spark a healing revolution by spreading Ayurveda awareness and training to at least 20 million people by the end of this year. The Ancient Healthcare Project brings together a number of initiatives throughout 2016 to help us achieve this goal. The first is an educational documentary film we plan to launch in May. My team and I spent 2 years traveling thousands of miles across the world, tracking down farms, doctors, ashrams, laboratories, manufacturing plants, and Ayurvedic physicians to learn the truth about Ayurveda. And let me just tell you, the more deeper we got into this body of wisdom, the more we realized how much people need it. So we cannot wait to share this documentary with the world in May. We're releasing it online and through a number of premiere events in San Diego, New York, and India. Apart from the film, we're also launching a line of Ayurvedic supplements through what we call a seed-to-table approach. And what this basically means is that we're in charge of every step of the supply chain for these supplements, from the procurement of the seeds, to the farming, to the harvesting, to the bottling, and to the distribution. Our goal with this seed-to-table approach is to set a new standard in quality, purity, safety, ethics, and sustainability that no other supplement manufacturer can match, because we believe this is important to the consumer. People now care more than ever about where their products actually come from. Did you know that Ayurveda cataloged over 9,000 medicinal plants and herbs over 6,000 years ago? Well, one of our biggest goals with this ancient healthcare project is to also create platforms for people to not just practice Ayurveda, but to teach and spread it too. So another thing we're doing is we're setting up a HIPAA-compliant telemedicine platform that will link up patients and practitioners. What's great about this is that it's a win-win for everyone. Patients get personalized consultations from the comfort of their own home, and Ayurvedic practitioners get a wider client base to work with. So there you've got it, the film, the supplements, the telemedicine platform, and we've also got a host of other complementary initiatives and products throughout 2016, including e-courses, cookbooks, spice kits, and even an Ayurvedic retreat, which will lead to our very own in-house certification program. And eventually, an Ayurvedic school we plan to open in 2017. All of these initiatives come together to create education, awareness, and tools for people to integrate Ayurveda into their modern lives. So it's really a 360-degree, holistic, and long-term solution that we're aiming for with this ancient healthcare project. Okay, so this is where we need your support. See, up to this point, ancient healthcare has been completely privately funded. From the documentary filming, to the supplement production and R&D, to the upcoming telemedicine and retreat logistics, we've been paying for everything out of our own pockets. What we're looking for now is a financial boost to help us optimize and produce the best possible products we can and get maximum exposure for them. More specifically, we need funds to drive the ancient healthcare core team and expenses so we can continue to 1. Complete the post-production on the documentary film, 2. Continue building out the supplements, the spices, the learning materials, and the telemedicine platform. And 3. We need funds for our promotional and live event costs, which will help us get on the road and spread this message. To show that we are serious about what we are creating, we're also donating 10% of proceeds from this campaign to various charities, which will contribute towards sponsoring clinical trials, building Ayurvedic schools, creating scholarships and grants, and furthering education and Ayurveda infrastructure. The total preliminary sum we're looking at is $150,000, and we've also lined up some exciting stretch goals in the event we hit our initial target. We're also really excited about the perks we've prepared for this campaign, because they're not just there to reward our backers, but also to immerse them in the ancient healthcare experience too. We're giving away training materials like cookbooks, mini courses, telemedicine consultations, spots at the upcoming retreats, invites to the premieres, and even certification options, or just lunch with me and the team. The way we see it, the world needs this ancient wisdom now, more than ever. So we're calling on the whole community to help us spark a healing revolution across the planet with Ayurveda. Thank you for joining me, and it's great to have you on this adventure. When you support the Ancient Healthcare Project, you get rewarded in a variety of exciting ways, from digital film access to supplement and spice starter kits to telemedicine consultations and even Ayurvedic coaching certifications. You're sure to find a perk that fits your interest and budget. For $1, you get to join our movement, and we thank you very much for becoming a part of the Ancient Healthcare movement. You'll receive behind-the-scenes news and information about casting decisions and photos from the set. For $10, you get to experience the film online. Enjoy lifetime digital access to the film and a digital copy of the Ancient Healthcare Ayurvedic Cookbook, packed with dozens of authentic recipes that will heal, energize, and optimize your mind and body. Plus, get your name featured in our film credits. For $25, you get the Blu-ray DVD. Receive a high-quality Blu-ray DVD package of the film shipped directly to your door anywhere you are in the world. Plus, you still get digital access and the Ancient Healthcare Ayurvedic Cookbook. You'll also get your name featured in our film credit. For $35, you get the Ayurveda Digital Starter Kit. You'll receive our digital starter kit that equips you with the fundamental wisdom, recipes, tools, and techniques for enriching every part of your life with Ayurveda. It contains a collection of Ayurvedic guided meditation MP3s, an amazing in-depth Ayurveda 101 e-course, a digital cookbook, and digital film access. And you'll get your name entered in our film credits. For $100, you'll get the Ayurveda Digital Starter Kit Plus. It's same as the perk before, except you get 2 more courses. These 2 courses focus specifically around Ayurveda in women and Ayurveda in children. For $200, and there's a limit of 25 people for this one, is the Ancient Nutrient Starter Kit plus Kulreet Chaudhary's book, The Prime. You get to receive our physical starter kit with essential Ayurvedic supplements and spices for daily use. It includes 3 bottles of ancient healthcare seed-to-table supplements, Triphala, Bacopa, and turmeric. The Ancient Healthcare Spice Pack, containing 6 vials of nutrient-dense spices such as fenugreek, fennel, coriander, mustard seeds, cumin, and turmeric. And digital access to the movie. This also contains the training content from the digital starter kit and your name in our film credits. For $300, you'll get the Project Yourself training kit plus add-ons. Receive the Project Yourself digital home training course packed with 9 modules of ancient wisdom, including Ayurveda, meditation, visualization, and more. This home training course takes all the ancient wisdom of India, brings it all together, allowing one to transform every area of their life. This also includes the digital access to the movie, the physical Ancient Nutrient Starter Kit, the training from the digital starter kit, and your name in the film credits. For $500, you'll get the Ayurvedic Telemedicine Pack. You'll receive a 60-minute one-on-one telemedicine session with the world-renowned Ayurvedic physician. This is a powerful opportunity to experience an Ayurvedic action plan, personalized to your needs and condition. Also included is digital access to the movie, the physical Ancient Nutrient Starter Kit, the training content from the digital starter kit, and your name in the film credits. For $1,000, and this is limited to 10 individuals, you get to be the film premiere guest of honor. Be our guest of honor and connect with other Ayurveda enthusiasts, and be the first in the world to watch our film at our premiere this May. Choose between screenings in San Diego, New York, and India. Plus, the physical Ancient Nutrient Starter Kit, the training content from the digital starter kit, your name in our film credits, and a lunch date with our founders. For $2,000, this is also limited to 10 individuals, you get the pre-premiere VIP package. You get to join the director and select cast in San Diego for a private film screening before the final cut. Your feedback that day can actually influence the final cut itself. This is followed by a private dinner at the director's home. You also get 2 VIP tickets to the movie premiere with all the experts from the film. On top of that, your logo, your name, and your website are featured in the premiere brochure and your name in our film credits. Plus, you get access to 10 HD special downloads. For $27.50, and this is limited to 5, you get to play an extra role in our film and join us for a lunch. Your face will be seen in the film. You will spend the day on set in San Diego and be placed in a scene as close to the camera as possible, and you get to eat lunch with the cast and crew. You also get 2 cast VIP premiere tickets to join the filmmakers and experts from the film on the day of the premiere in the first couple rows of seats. Your logo, name, and website are featured in the premiere brochure and your name in our film credits. Plus, you get 10 HD special downloads. For $5,000, this is also limited to 10 individuals, you get the Ancient Healthcare Retreat Package. You reserve a spot at one of our upcoming Ancient Healthcare Retreats in April or October. You get to get away and get treated by the world's best Ayurvedic physicians and experts for a week and experience hands-on Ayurvedic detox, cooking, and massage coaching. The accommodations and food will be amazing and will be provided by us. You also get digital access to the movie, your name in our film credits, and a lunch date with the founders. For $6,000, and this is limited to 25 individuals, you get the Ayurveda Coaching Certificate. You get to receive training for our Ancient Healthcare Ayurveda Coaching Certification. This is your launchpad to not only learning Ayurveda for yourself, but for teaching and empowering others, either as a hobby or as a business. You will be trained by the world's best Ayurvedic physicians and experts. You'll also get a digital copy of the movie, the physical Ancient Nutrient Starter Kit, the training content from the digital starter kit, your name in our film credits, and a lunch date with our founders. For $10,000, limited to 5 individuals, you'll get to be a part of the ultimate Ayurveda package. You get everything in the above retreat package, except this one includes 2 cast VIP premiere tickets to join the filmmakers and experts from the film in the first couple rows of seats. You'll also get the physical Ancient Nutrient Starter Kit, the training content from the Digital Starter Kit, your name in our film credits, and a lunch date with our founders. Your logo, name, and website are featured in the premiere brochure and your name in our film credits, plus 10 HD special downloads. For $25,000, this is limited to 1 lucky individual. You get to become our executive producer. This is the ultimate perk for that one individual who believes in our mission just as much as we do. You get to receive an executive producer credit for our upcoming film on IMDb. You also get 10 VIP premiere tickets for your friends and family to join the filmmakers and experts from the film in the first rows of seats. You will also receive an invite to the pre-premiere party. Additionally, you get a chance to come to our retreat and get treated by the world's best Ayurvedic physicians and experts. Thank you so much for supporting our mission, and thank you for any perk that you choose. We truly, truly appreciate all of your support. Thank you. Really, thank you for joining us today, and I'm sure the audience has gotten tremendous value out of this presentation. I know I did.
Yeah.
I learned a bunch of new things that I was like I said, I kind of saw the pieces, but it didn't really click till I saw the presentation.
It was truly wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, very valuable. And so, any last words you want to leave us with?
Just, I think mainly don't be afraid of your body. I know that, so many of the things that are happening nowadays seem overwhelming. And, even as I started to research what was going on, even I felt overwhelmed. But that's really just the beauty of Ayurvedic medicine. It's kind of almost like a paint by the numbers type of a approach of just insert triphala here, add tea here. It's like just this ridiculously simple and yet elegant system. And you don't have to be, some master. It's you can just be yourself and keep living your life, and it just allows you a way of not being afraid of your body anymore.
Powerful.
Yes.
Very good.
Great advice.
Thank you again for joining us, and we'll see everyone on our next session where we're going to dig in even deeper. So really excited to keep this going. Thank you again for joining us. Anything else you want to add?
No, it's been great, and we're excited to be on this journey with all of you and with you, Dr. Chaudhary. Thank you.
My pleasure.